The theme today is a World Reorder. New geometrics, fluid partnership, uncertain outcomes. Going to my country where I come from, South Africa, its relations with India are based on strong historical links which date back to the consistent and vocal support received from India in the fight against racial discrimination and our fight for liberation and democracy. In the words of our beloved father of the democracy in South Africa, Tata Nelson Mandela, he said, there has been a golden thread that has bound our peoples together for many, many decades, a thread woven during the long, arduous, and bitter years of struggle against common enemies, colonialism, imperialism, and racism. Since our first democratic election in 1994, South Africa has worked hard to ensure that we are at peace with the world and that our voice is heard both bilaterally as well as within the various multilateral fora, in pursuit of peacefully resolving issues that are of concern to the international community. Our engagement with the world has also, specifically with India, has of course been informed by our own experience during our liberation struggle, which had a character of international support and solidarity. Since the advent of our democracy, South Africa has positioned itself as a force for good in the world and as a contributor to the forward march of humanity. South Africa is committed to work for a better world where there is quality of life for all who live in it. We live in a time of globalization where the world is getting smaller, where new technologies are enabling progress at an unprecedented pace. This is a time when the means to eradicate poverty, unemployment, and inequality appear to be well within our grasp. It is, however, incumbent upon all of us to make sure that these new technologies are developed and applied in such a way that they become a tool of achieving progress for all of us and not just for a few. As with all countries, our foreign policy is an extension of our domestic priorities and is based on our national interests and objectives. In this regard, the African agenda is central to our foreign policy aims and objectives. The development of South Africa is inextricably linked to that of our continent. Consequently, we have defined and continue to pursue an African agenda which is predicated on an entrenchment of democracy, equality, peace, security, and the acceleration of economic growth for the betterment of all African citizens. Similarly, we have adopted the African Union Agenda, which is called Vision 23, as our vision for Africa's development over the next few decades. Agenda 2063 is a continental strategic framework for the socio-economic transformation of the continent over the next 50 years and constitutes an important building block for the achievement of the 2030 Sustainable Development Agenda. The advancement of the African continent, in turn, is also itself intricately connected to that of the developing countries of the South. Hence, the second pillar of our foreign policy, namely South-South cooperation. It is under this pillar that our close cooperation with India occurs in a host of international groupings and also forms the basis of our bilateral relations that are not only strategic in nature, but also inclusive and wide-ranging. We are encouraged by the consolidation of the democratic governance, peace, stability and security in most African states, and by the rapid and positive changes in living conditions and infrastructure development. In this regard, the agreement on an African continental free trade area is a significant milestone along the path to economic integration and prosperity. We are working together with our fellow African countries to establish a continental free trade area which would fundamentally transform Africa's economies and consolidate the continent's position in the global trading system. Our aspiration of a single African market for goods and services has been made possible by sustained economic growth and greater political stability in a number of countries of our continent. Our continent's development, however, is undermined by pockets of instability and conflicts. South Africa is striving to promote the goals of Agenda 2063, has collaborated actively in bilateral and multilateral efforts to resolve some of the continent's recurring conflicting situations, thus silencing the guns once and for all on the African continent, including those of our neighboring kingdoms of Lesotho, in the Democratic Republic of Congo, the Republic of Madagascar, Burundi, South Sudan, Somalia, and the Central African Republic. South Africa joined a number of states, the African Union and the United Nations, in condemning the attempted coup of the democratic government of Gabon a few days ago. This is based on the principle of the Constitutive Act that as Africans will not accept unconstitutional changes of government in the continent. South Africa last year celebrated the centenary of our struggle icon and liberation, Umama Albertina Sisulu, and our first democratic president, Utata Nelson Rolihlahla Mandela. This celebration provided us with the opportunity to reflect on the progress we have made as a young democracy and the tasks that still lay ahead of us. It has also reinforced the need for South Africa to continue to build on the legacy of these struggle icons in working towards a peaceful, just, and prosperous world. We remain inspired by the role they played as bridge builders and seek to follow their example in bringing together divergent perspectives. South Africa and India have produced two 20th century icons in the presence of Mahatma Gandhi and Nelson Mandela. I'm honored to visit India during the 150-year celebration of the birth of the great Mahatma Gandhi, who was born in India but became a South African from 1893 to 1914. So we have a right as South Africa and Africa to own him. Not only had he had an impact on resistance to apartheid regime, but was also the beginning of the evolution of his philosophy, which influenced the political path of India towards its independence. India was Gandhi's country of birth, of course, as I indicated earlier on, but adopted by South Africa. The values Mahatma Gandhi lived and espoused are solely needed given the current state of the world. The resurgence of geopolitical rivalry, which has not been experienced since the Cold War era, has huge implications for international peace and security. There is a growing challenge to important multilateral arrangements characterized by the withdrawal from commitments made in the 2030 Agenda for the Sustainable Development on climate change, financing for development, and in nuclear non-proliferation. This rise of trade protectionism threatens the multilateral trading system we agreed in Marrakech in 1994 and Doha in 2001. We need to strengthen the rules-based international trading system and move with speed to transform other multilateral institutions and global governance structure to be in line with the current realities of the 21st century. This should include reforms of the United Nations Security Council, which is limited in its ability to respond to current security challenges by virtue of its structure, composition, and relative lack of accountability. South Africa will continue to play its part in conflict resolution in these areas and in combating threats to regional and international peace and solidarity. From past experience, we know that India will walk this path with us and other countries that are associated to South Africa and Africa in general. Here, I would be remiss in not expressing South Africa's deep appreciation for the support of India and other countries in South Africa's elections as a non-permanent member of the United Nations Security Council. Our 2-year tenure began this month, and we look forward to closely collaborating with India, which has applied for a 2-year tenure on the Council from 2020 to 2021. Turning to economic matters, Indian investment into South Africa's current stand at 8 billion and have created, the question is answered now, $8 billion US, and have created an estimate of 18,000 jobs. There are 130 Indian companies that have invested in South Africa, including such household names such as Tata, Mahindra, Kipla, and the Bank of India. The MOU signed between Invest South Africa and Invest India during the South African India Business Summit held in Johannesburg on 30 April 2018 will contribute to further advancing of investment in the continent, as South Africa being the gateway to the continent. The South African government is working hard to improve the investment environment through such measures such as ensuring policy certainty and consistency, while also improving the performance of our state-owned enterprises and fiscal consolidation. We are also doing our utmost best to improve infrastructure that is critical to undergird investment. Through a myriad initiatives and incentives, including the one-stop shop, we are improving the ease of doing business in South Africa. Investment is a necessary condition for the growth of our economy and the creation of jobs on a scale that will significantly reduce current levels of unemployment. In building on previous gains, our government earlier this year announced an ambitious investment drive aimed at generating at least 100 billion US in new investments over the next 5 years. As you are aware, this drive culminated in an investment conference on 27 October 2018, and a number of investors from India and other sister countries participated in this summit, and would like to thank India in the role it played in helping South Africa achieve this goal. As part of improving our investment service to investors, we have established Invest South Africa to focus on investment promotion and facilitation. Invest South Africa has established one-stop shops which bring together key government departments in a single location to provide specialist advisory services, fast-track investment projects, and reduce regulatory burden for investors. So as I conclude, Program Director, we have taken a decision as the country to accelerate land reforms, but not in a negative way other people who are far away are interpreting it. This includes land redistribution and ensuring security of tenure for the rural poor. We are determined that this should be achieved in a manner that is consistent with our constitution enhances agricultural production and food security, and promotes economic development.